Ladies and gentlemen, you didn't find this moment by accident. You didn't stumble into these words by coincidence. The voice of destiny doesn't shout. It whispers, and those who are tired enough, desperate enough, hungry enough hear it. You've been carrying so much. The weight of what they said about you. The shame of what you did when no one was watching. The fear of being overlooked again. And still, you show up. Every morning you rise. Maybe not with strength, maybe not with joy, but you rise. That alone is evidence of greatness buried inside of you. Evidence that purpose has not forgotten your name. You have no idea what's waking up inside you right now. You think it's just motivation. No, it's alignment. You think it's just encouragement. No, it's awakening. Something sacred is starting to move again. Something you thought died in you just breathed. There is a reason life didn't let you go under. Because what's inside of you isn't ordinary. You don't belong in the shadows. You weren't born to stay broken. You are here because something in the heavens believed that this generation still needs what only you can give. You didn't arrive here by accident. Your existence is evidence of divine purpose. Every breath you take, every heartbeat in your chest, is a signal that something greater is still unfolding in your life. You may not always see it. You may not always feel it. But just because you can't trace it, doesn't mean it's not happening. There are too many coincidences, too many near misses, too many times you should have given up but didn't. For this to be random. Look back at the moments that should have taken you out. The nights when you had no strength left. The mornings when getting out of bed felt like a mountain. The relationships that left you shattered. The failures that made you question your worth. And yet somehow you're still here. That alone is proof. That alone is testimony. The storms didn't destroy you. They revealed something inside of you that was stronger than the storm. You are not just existing by default. You are here by design. Your personality, your flaws, your struggles, your scars. They are all threads in a tapestry that only eternity could have woven. There is something you carry that no one else does. A voice that was meant to be heard. A story that was meant to be told. A light that was meant to shine through you, and only you. That is not ego. That is calling. And you don't have to wait until you feel worthy to believe that. You don't need approval, applause, or validation. The fingerprints of purpose were stamped on your soul before anyone had an opinion about you. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to feel qualified. What matters is that you're still breathing. That breath is permission. That breath is evidence. You are not a mistake, not a background character in someone else's narrative. You are the main character of your own. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked by the one who sees all. And even though you've made mistakes, even though you've doubted, even though you've drifted off course, purpose never withdrew its hand from your life. It waited. It whispered. It stayed. You think you've wasted too much time. But what if the delay was part of the design? What if the pain was part of the preparation? What if the long road was the only road that could build the kind of strength you now carry? Some people spend years searching for meaning, chasing status, possessions, approval, never realizing that meaning is not found in what you achieve, but in who you become. And you, just by living, just by enduring, just by refusing to stay down, you are becoming. You've already overcome what others wouldn't have survived. And even if you don't feel strong, even if you still feel broken, purpose can work with pieces. Destiny can breathe through cracks. The most anointed people are often the most wounded, not because they were weak, but because they were chosen for something deeper. You may feel like you're late, like you're behind, but in the realm of purpose you're right on time. You're in the perfect place to be transformed. The fact that you still hunger for more, that you still hope even after all you've seen, that's the spark that purpose needs to ignite the next season of your life. Your desire for change is not random. Your longing for clarity, for peace, for something more. Those are divine echoes. They are reminders that something in you refuses to settle. Something in you remembers that there's more to life than survival, more to your story than struggle. And that memory, that ache, that voice within you that won't be silenced, is not your imagination. It's your assignment. It's the fire that will not go out. The whisper that keeps saying you were made for more. You were born on purpose, with purpose, for purpose. What you've survived has prepared you for what you're about to step into. Nothing you've been through is wasted. Every scar, every disappointment, every silent night where you cried out for something to make sense. Those moments have shaped you in ways that comfort never could. You don't become strong by avoiding the fire. You become strong by walking through it and discovering that it didn't consume you. You didn't just endure the pain. You were being formed by it, refined, broken open so something deeper, something unshakable could emerge. You don't need to regret your journey, the bro paths, the delays, the betrayals, the chapters you wish you could erase. Those weren't detours. They were ingredients. Ingredients in a process that was building the kind of resilience, the kind of depth that surface-level living could never give you. There are things you understand now that you couldn't have learned any other way. Empathy doesn't grow in ease. Courage doesn't come from compliments. Faith doesn't develop when everything is going your way. It's the crushing that created capacity. It's the rejection that unlocked your discernment. It's the struggle that gave you sight. You know now how to walk into rooms with quiet confidence. You know how to spot fake smiles and feel what people are hiding behind their words. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength that doesn't shout. That's strength that's earned. You see, some people talk about strength because they've read about it. You talk about it because you've lived it. And that lived strength is the reason you're still standing today. You didn't just go through what you went through for survival. You went through it so you could carry something with you into your next season. The lessons, the grit, the humility. All of it is coming with you. All of it is necessary. There's a version of you that could have been comfortable and soft and safe, but that version wouldn't have had the capacity for the calling that's on your life now. The calling that requires you to know what it feels like to be empty. The calling that requires you to recognize someone else's pain without them even saying a word. The calling that requires you to speak not just with words, but with weight. And that weight comes from surviving what was meant to destroy you. You don't need to apologize for your story. You don't need to hide the chapters that broke you. You carry power because of what you walked through. There are people who will find freedom in your scars. There are people who will find healing because you dare to show up with your past still visible. You see, your wounds don't disqualify you. They authenticate you. They are the proof that you didn't quit. They are the evidence that even in the silence, even in the confusion, even when it felt like you were being forgotten, something in you refused to die. That's not just survival. That's strength forged in fire. And now, standing where you are, you can look back and see how the very things you hated became the tools that sharpened you. The loneliness taught you how to stand without applause. The betrayal taught you how to trust your intuition. The failures taught you how to rise again without losing your integrity. You've been trained in the unseen places. You've been molded in the shadows. You've been prepared behind the curtain so that when the light finally finds you, you don't flinch. You don't shrink. You don't second-guess the space you've been called to occupy. Because you know you've earned it. You know what it cost. You know the nights, the prayers, the internal battles, and no one can take that from you. No one can question what's been carved into your soul through fire. Stop waiting for permission. Your future is already calling you forward. There comes a moment in every life where the pause must end, where the hesitation must be silenced, and the steps forward must begin. Too often we sit in rooms built by the opinions of others, waiting for applause that will never come, approval that was never ours to chase, and validation that only delays what was meant to be born through boldness. You are not required to make others comfortable before choosing yourself. You are not obligated to stay small just because someone else benefits from your silence. You don't need their agreement to grow. You don't need their understanding to evolve. The very thing you're waiting for. The green light, the open door, the sign. It's already inside you. That restlessness you feel, that constant sense that you were meant for more, that quiet fire. It's not your imagination. It's your future, calling you out of fear and into freedom. You have something that cannot be measured by titles, positions, or followers. You have a knowing, a deep, divine impression that you were created for a reason. And that reason cannot be defined by how many people applaud your journey. Your worth doesn't rise and fall with their recognition. Stop looking for permission from people who were never meant to understand your calling. Some people can't see what's in you because they're still wrestling with what's in themselves. That's not your burden to carry. You were never supposed to dim your brilliance to fit into their shadows. You were never designed to shrink your purpose to match their limited vision. Every time you second-guess your gift, every time you defer your dream, you dishonor the very breath that gave you life. There is a voice within you that already knows the next step. It's not loud. It doesn't beg. But it waits patiently beneath the noise of doubt and the distractions of expectation. That voice is truth. That voice is clarity. That voice is your future trying to break through. And it won't be silenced forever. Eventually, the pressure to stay still becomes greater than the fear of movement. Eventually, you realize that waiting doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. And you are not created to stay stuck. You were not formed to repeat yesterday. You were designed to rise, to move, to transform. The very fabric of who you are responds to growth. You know it in your bones. That itch to break out isn't restlessness. It's purpose knocking. Every time you look outside yourself for validation, you give your power away. And the future you dream of doesn't exist in the hands of others. It exists in your next act of courage, your next act of obedience, your next refusal to let fear speak louder than faith. There's a reason you can't shake the feeling that it's time. There's a reason you're drawn to things that scare you. You're being invited into a new season. Not because you're ready in their eyes, but because you're chosen in ways they'll never comprehend. You can't let their confusion become your conclusion. You can't let the comfort of the crowd drown out the calling that demands you step away from the familiar. The truth is, most people will only celebrate you once the results are visible. But power is born in private. Breakthrough begins in silence. And the people who change the world are the ones who acted before the world gave them permission. You owe it to the version of yourself that's been waiting. Waiting for you to stop asking if it's okay. Waiting for you to stop seeking safety in systems that were never built for your kind of greatness. Waiting for you to stand up, speak up, and move. Not because someone told you to, but because you finally realized you didn't need them to. Your pain didn't break you, it awakened you. What you thought was the end was actually the beginning. The moment you felt like everything was falling apart was the exact moment something deep was being born within you. Pain has a way of stripping away illusions, exposing what's real, and forcing us to see what we never would have noticed in the comfort. It's not easy. No one invites it. But somehow, when pain enters, clarity often follows. The things that used to matter don't anymore. The opinions that once held you hostage lose their grip. The noise fades and something ancient, something sacred, begins to rise from the silence inside you. You start to remember who you really are, not the version shaped by expectations, not the mask built to survive, but the soul that has been whispering beneath the surface all along. Pain doesn't come to destroy. It comes to reveal. It reveals what you've built your life on. It reveals who's really with you. It reveals what can be shaken and what can't. And in that revealing, you're given the gift of choice. Will you be defined by the wound, or will you be refined by it? Will you stay buried under the weight of what hurt you, or will you let that weight build something unbreakable in you? This is the crossroads many never speak of, the silent place between you were and who you're becoming. And in that space, everything hurts, but everything shifts. It's where healing begins, not with answers, but with awareness. Not your heart with perfection, but with presence. You're not weak because you've been wounded. You're strong because you kept breathing through it. There are things in you now that wouldn't exist without the pain. Compassion, depth, the ability to see through someone else's eyes, the strength to stand alone, the resilience to keep moving even when no one understands. Those aren't random traits. They were carved from sorrow. They were pulled from the ashes of what you lost. There's a softness in you now, but also a fire. A wisdom that comes from surviving your own breaking. That's what makes you different. You don't speak from theory. You speak from the battlefield. You've lived it. You've wept for it. You've bled for it. And that lived experience is what makes your voice matter. That pain birthed a purpose, and that purpose will not stay silent. You no longer fear the fall, because you've already fallen and risen. You no longer fear being alone, because you found yourself in the quiet. You no longer fear the unknown, because you've walked through it blind and still found the next step. Pain made you honest. It stripped away what was shallow. It dismantled what was false. It burned down what wasn't meant to last so that something eternal could be built. And now there's a clarity in you, a knowing, a groundedness that can't be taught. It had to be endured. It had to be lived. And now, when you speak, when you move, when you show up, you carry weight. The world may not always recognize it. People may still misread you. But that's not your concern. You didn't walk through the fire to be understood. You walked through it to become whole. And whether or not anyone else can see the transformation, you know what it cost. You know what it forged, and no one can take that from you. The pain didn't win. It awakened the warrior, the healer, the voice, the soul that had been waiting all along. You are not defined by the chapter they met you in. People love to freeze you in a moment, to reduce you to a version of yourself that made sense to them, that served their narrative, that fit their comfort zone. But you are not that snapshot. You are not the mistake they saw, the weakness they pointed out, or the confusion you were walking through at the time. That was a moment, not your identity. That was a page, not your whole book. And yet, there will always be those who try to limit you to who you were before you knew who you really are. They speak with certainty about a version of you that no longer exists. They quote the old you as if the new one hasn't risen. But their misunderstanding doesn't imprison you unless you give it permission. Growth is messy. Transformation is not glamorous. Healing doesn't happen on a stage. It happens in silence, in solitude, in the sacred spaces where no one is watching. You've fought battles no one clapped for. You've done the work behind the scenes. You've chosen growth over comfort, truth over appearance, becoming over performing. And those choices don't always come with applause. They come with misunderstanding. They come with distance. They come with people walking away because they can't follow you into your next chapter. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're evolving. And not everyone has the language for your evolution. Not everyone has the capacity to meet the version of you that's emerging. You must learn to release the need to be understood by those who only knew the broken version of you. You must let go of the pressure to prove your growth to those committed to remembering your pain. There is freedom in releasing the audience you were never meant to keep. There is freedom in allowing yourself to move forward, even if it means walking alone for a season. Because the truth is, you were not created to be someone's memory. You were created to be a movement. A living, breathing expression of transformation. And movements don't wait for permission. Movements don't apologize for progress. Movements keep moving even when misunderstood. Every time you rise again, you rewrite your story. Every act of healing is a plot twist the old chapter never saw coming. You don't have to erase the past. You just have to refuse to be defined by it. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them label what they never stayed long enough to understand. Your story is still unfolding. Your voice is still growing. Your identity is not found in their perception. It's found in your persistence, in your decision to keep becoming. Even when they've stopped looking, you carry power that can't be contained in a single chapter. You were made to evolve. You were designed to outgrow what once defined you. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's lonely, but it's also sacred. It's holy ground, the kind of space where new life begins. When you stop defending your past and start walking boldly into your present, everything changes. The opinions lose their grip. The shame begins to melt. The heaviness lifts. Because you realize you don't need anyone to validate your next step. You just need the courage to take it. They may never acknowledge how far you've come. They may only remember what you didn't know, how lost you were, how much you struggled. But that's okay, because you remember. You remember what it took. You remember the nights you didn't quit. You remember the tears you turned into prayers, the silence you turned into strength. You remember who you used to be, and you honor that version. Not with shame, but with gratitude, because they were the seed. And this version is the bloom. Your voice has power even when it shakes. There is something holy in the sound of someone speaking through their trembling, in the courage it takes to speak truth when fear is present, when doubt is loud, when history says to stay silent. You don't have to wait until you're fearless to use your voice. You just have to be willing. The shaking doesn't disqualify you. It proves that you're showing up real, raw, and ready to be used. Some of the most powerful moments in history came not from confident speech, but from honest ones. From voices that quivered with truth. From people who stood when it would have been easier to stay seated. From those who refused to let fear have the final word. There's a misconception that strength means never wavering, never hesitating, never doubting. But that's not strength, that's performance. Real strength looks like trembling hands still raised. It looks like knees knocking but feet moving anyway. It looks like a voice that breaks mid-sentence, but keeps speaking because something inside knows it must be said. Your voice doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It doesn't have to echo through halls to create impact. Sometimes the whisper carries more weight than the shout, because it's rooted in something deeper. Truth born through fire, conviction shaped by experience, purpose refined by pain. There are people waiting for a sound that can only come from your story. They won't be moved by polished speeches or rehearsed lines. They'll be moved by your authenticity, by your willingness to show up with your scars visible, with your voice trembling, but your heart steady. They don't need perfection. They need presence. They need to know they're not alone. And your voice, in all its honesty, becomes a bridge for them. A reminder that healing is possible, that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about choosing to speak anyway. You have the authority to speak into places you once thought would silence you. Every time you open your mouth, you disrupt the lie that you were better off quiet. You confront the fear that told you no one would listen. You reject the shame that tried to mute your worth. Your voice is your reclamation. It is you standing in your power. And yes, it may shake, but it shakes because it's carrying something weighty. It shakes because it's breaking through resistance. It shakes because you're not speaking from theory. You're speaking from truth, and truth always stirs the atmosphere. There is a reason your voice has been under attack. There's a reason you were told to stay quiet. There's a reason fear rose every time you thought about sharing your story. Because the enemy of your purpose knows the power you carry when you speak. He knows that when you rise and speak with conviction, even through your shaking, you unlock something in others. You give them permission to rise. You give them language for their pain. You give them hope. And that kind of power doesn't come from volume. It comes from vulnerability. It comes from your willingness to be seen and heard, even before you feel ready. You don't need a microphone to be impactful. You don't need a stage to be significant. You just need to open your mouth, right where you are, with what you have, in your own words, because no one else can speak like you. No one else carries your exact story, your exact sound, your exact weight. And what you have is not too little. What you carry is not irrelevant. Even if your voice shakes, it carries the power to change atmospheres, to disrupt patterns, to release healing. Your voice carries fire. It carries legacy. It carries freedom, not just for you, but for others who need the sound of someone who dared to speak anyway. You will never be more ready than you are right now. That idea of perfect timing is an illusion, a distraction dressed as wisdom. How many dreams have been delayed because someone was waiting to feel ready? How many gifts buried beneath layers of hesitation, all because the moment didn't look perfect, the circumstances weren't ideal, the fear was still too loud. Readiness is rarely a feeling. It's a decision, a posture, a willingness to step even while your legs shake, to move even when you can't see the full path. You keep waiting for the fear to go away, but fear doesn't leave before obedience. It moves you after action. Waiting for courage to come find you is like waiting for sunrise without opening your eyes. It's already there. You just haven't chosen to see it yet. There is no magical moment coming when everything will align, when you'll suddenly feel fully prepared and perfectly confident. You think clarity is what you need, but it's commitment that unlocks clarity. When you begin to walk, the fog starts to lift, but if you stand still waiting for it to clear, you may stay frozen for years. You already have what it takes to start. Not to finish, not to figure everything out in advance, but to begin. And beginning is where the miracles begin. The opening of your mouth, the stretching of your hands, the willingness to say yes when it still feels uncertain. Those are the things heaven responds to. Not perfection, not performance, but faith. The kind of faith that moves in the midst of doubt, that doesn't wait for ideal conditions, that doesn't make agreement with fear a prerequisite for action. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to be available. Obedience will carry you where certainty never will. There are doors that won't open until your feet move toward them. There are opportunities that stay invisible until you stop trying to calculate and start choosing courage. Faith isn't about feeling confident. It's about trusting the one who called you, even when you don't feel worthy of the calling. Especially when you don't feel worthy. Because it's in those moments when your humanity is fully felt, that divinity begins to rise. You weren't chosen because you were ready. You were chosen because you were willing. Don't despise the small beginning. Don't diminish your first step because it doesn't look like someone else's 10th. You're not running their race. You're not called to their assignment. What they built in public, you're just starting in private. That's not failure, that's faithfulness, and every giant leap they took was once a trembling step too. Readiness grows as you go. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct. The more you move, the more you build trust with yourself. The more you act, the louder your faith becomes. And in time, what once terrified you becomes your testimony. What once silenced you becomes your sound. The lie is that you need more time, that you need more resources, more training, more connections, more proof. But time doesn't birth destiny. Obedience does. Resources don't create purpose. Alignment does. And what you lack in strategy, heaven makes up for in favor. You think you need to know the how. But all you really need to know is the who. Yes. If you can give the yes, the how will follow. The provision will follow. The alignment will follow. The doors will follow. Not all at once. Not always how you imagined, but they will come. Because you didn't wait until the world said it was time. You listened when heaven whispered, now. There are people assigned to the sound of your yes. There are lives connected to your obedience. There are generations that will be changed because you stopped waiting for permission and chose to move with purpose. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to be willing to walk, even if the ground feels shaky beneath your feet. Because the ground isn't what holds you, faith is. And faith doesn't wait for perfect timing. It steps, it moves, it trusts. And it dares to begin now, There is a weight you carry that you didn't choose, but it's not without purpose. You've been entrusted with things others didn't see, with pain others didn't understand, with burdens others didn't have to bear. And though it may have felt like punishment, it was actually preparation. The depth of your struggle was never a sign of your weakness. It was a sign of your capacity. What you endured shaped your insight. What broke you open also opened your eyes. You weren't meant to live a surface life. You weren't made to skim the top and play it safe. You were formed for depth, and depth is carved in the quiet, in the pressure, in the unseen places where nobody claps but heaven leans in. You carry a frequency that can't be faked. There is something about someone who has been through fire and still speaks with softness. There is a gravity in your presence now, a kind of authority that isn't loud but lingers. When you walk into a room, you bring more than words. You bring atmosphere. Not because you're perfect, not because you have all the answers, but because you've been marked by something real. The kind of real that doesn't come from books or titles or training. It comes from surviving things you didn't think you would. From losing everything you thought mattered and finding something greater on the other side. People don't always understand the weight you carry. They see your smile and assume the path was easy. But they don't know the nights you sat in silence, praying for strength just to keep breathing. They don't know the days you carried others while secretly drowning yourself. They don't know what it took to stay when everything in you wanted to run. But you know, and God knows, and the heavens have recorded every tear, every sigh, every moment you chose to rise again when quitting would have been easier. That kind of resilience can't be taught. It's lived, and because you've lived it, you carry something unshakable. You are a carrier of breakthrough. That's why your journey's been so heavy. Breakers don't live easy lives. They're chosen for hard paths because they're meant to go first, to push through walls others avoid, to tear down lies others accept, to create paths in places that looked like wilderness. You weren't just walking through for yourself. You were clearing the way for those behind you. Every battle you've fought, every fear you faced, every season you thought would destroy you, it all became the training ground for what you're carrying now. You didn't just survive, you were being forged. Now, when you speak, chains start to rattle. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because your presence carries testimony. You don't need to convince people of your power. You just need to stand in it. The weight you carry is a divine assignment. You've been trusted with influence, even if it hasn't fully manifested yet. And it's not about platform. It's about presence. It's about showing up in rooms with a spirit that shifts things, with words that carry oil, with eyes that see beyond the surface. You weren't given the weight to crush you. You were given it to anchor you, to ground you in truth, to prepare you for impact. You are not too much. You are not overbearing. You are not unqualified. You are chosen. You are assigned. And everything you've carried, every invisible load, every secret storm, every unseen scar, it all carries a glory that cannot be manufactured, only endured. That's why it feels heavy. Not because you're failing, but because you're full of fire, full of truth, full of the kind of grace that shakes systems and wakes the sleeping. The world may not know what to do with someone like you, but heaven knew exactly what it was doing when it gave that weight. You've waited long enough. You've second-guessed yourself long enough. This is your awakening, the sound of something ancient stirring within you, reminding you that power was never outside of you. It's been buried in your bones, wrapped in your voice, woven into your story. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs your clarity, your fire, your obedience. Every step you take now is not just for you. It's for the ones coming after you, for the ones watching silently, hoping someone like you would rise. You don't need more time, more validation, or more proof. You are already becoming. You are already enough. Let this be the moment where fear loses its grip, where doubt grows silent, and where destiny begins to speak louder than distraction. Walk forward. Speak boldly. Stand fully alive. This is your chapter now, unapologetic, unshaken, and unstoppable.